Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we got a lot to discuss, so let's waste no more time. Hashtag ODPH EE for the Entertainment Edition, that is. The biggest entertainment story of the week has to be the surprise final season of The Big Bang Theory.
So one would say this news came in like a bang.
You could say that, but TV's arguably number one rated comedy show.
I'll say statistically it is the number one rated comedy on TV, if not the number one rated show.
Yeah, it's up there if it's not the number one. Is ending its 12-year run with its upcoming season.
Mm-hmm.
Pad, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say congratulations to them because, and I know you and I had this discussion, in today's day and age where TV shows come and go like candy bars do, where, I can't tell you the number of shows I've seen debut at the start of a season and are gone by Christmas. Mm-hmm. I mean, one immediately comes to mind for me is The River that was on ABC that was from the guys who did Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
Enjoyed it, great show, but, got canceled. You see that all the time. So for a show in this day and age to go 12 years, be successful, continue to be successful, I can't speak to the ratings. I don't know ratings, but I would, if it continues to be the number one rated comedy, if not the number one rated show, the numbers haven't gone down all that much, but to sustain success for that long is very impressive. That being said, I feel like it was time.
Yeah, I have to agree. The Big Bang Theory, when it came out, I believe was one of the original breakout hits for, dare I say, geek culture.
Yeah.
At the time, there really wasn't anything like it. I mean, it was just about four geeky people, talking comics. They're talking video games.
Sure.
You really didn't see that on television. And the fact that it took off as well as it did.
Right. I mean, you had stuff on mainstream television that was kind of geeky. I mean, I think of Heroes. Heroes is a little geeky, but not in the same vein. Big Bang Theory was the first, overtly, we're going to start doing pop culture references to comics, movies, video games. Anything that was big, they were making references. It was the first of its kind that I can at least think of on mainstream, the big four, the basic cable channels.
Absolutely. For its time, it was definitely groundbreaking in the sense that it really opened the world's eyes to geek culture.
Right.
I would say, because unless you were really into it, a lot of those references people didn't get, and they didn't understand why that happened. Yep. And it's just a simple dynamic of four friends in their daily lives.
Yep.
And then just seeing people that are not involved in it, like Penny, played by Kaylee
Cuoco.
Thank you. Played by her, that her character was definitely not somebody that was involved in that.
Yep.
By any stretch of the
yeah, she was as in depth as the main characters were. The four guys were in geek culture. She was about as far from it at the start as could humanly possibly be. And it was funny because you'd see moments throughout the show where she would say something or respond to something. And she goes, "Oh God." I understood the reference.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you kind of see that, it was almost a reflection of just the mainstream culture catching on.
Yeah.
It's just subtle as it is. It was just as time was growing on and the ratings were growing. And obviously the writing at the time was very good, too. Mm-hmm. You made Sheldon Cooper, played by Jim Parsons, into, dare I say, one of the TV's most iconic characters.
I would argue at the start if you go back and you watch the start of the show, he's almost like Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, how robotic he is. Mm-hmm. And you look at Raj at the start of the show couldn't talk to a woman.
Yeah.
Penny'd be in the room and he's friends with her. He wouldn't say a word. He'd whisper into Howard's ear what he wanted to say, or he'd write it down.
Yeah, between Howard, Leonard, Raj, and Sheldon. I mean, you're, dare I say, the original Fantastic Four of the show. Yeah. And to see how their daily lives have evolved from there. I mean, obviously they've added new characters in there throughout the years. And Mayim Bialik's character, it was definitely a nice shot in the arm at the time she appeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, her character of Amy Farrah Fowler definitely was well needed to balance out Sheldon Cooper.
Right.
And it really added a new dynamic into the show.
I would say it was almost like a changing of life for them, because before it was, 4 bachelors living together, playing Dungeons and Dragons and video games and going to see movies and hitting the comic shop, to all of a sudden you're taking 4 guys and taking them completely out of their element.
Mm-hmm. And really showing how it, I don't want to say how much difference there is between them and the real world, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But it almost was that sense that, for what they're into, definitely at the time wasn't mainstream.
Right.
But let's fast forward 12 years. It's the norm now.
Right. I mean, because you think back to 2007, this is before Iron Man is out. This is before DC has started their run of movies. They've had movies, but none of them have really... Comic book movies have been around, but none of them have really jumped into the mainstream that, like, you're seeing wide news coverage on stuff outside of, your pop culture sites.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to see the impact that they've been able to go this long. And, I mean, the ratings are still good. Mm-hmm. But just the fact they're going on top, it's almost like a Seinfeld thing, almost.
Yeah, that's what I like to see with the television show, especially one that's been going on as long as they have. Go out on top, go out on your terms, right at the ending how you would want it, and then just, go off into the sunset.
Yeah, because at this point, they've almost done everything they can do.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, they've gone from 4 bachelors all working at a university in, I believe it's Los Angeles, mm-hmm. to dating, to... I want to say all but Raj is married. Granted, I haven't watched the show in a number of years, but last I knew, Raj wasn't married. So you go, 75% of them are married. I believe Howard, last I knew, had a kid. Mm-hmm. So it's gone. And you look, if you just do your traditional history line, like you used to do in school, it's wild to think of where they started and where they're going to end. Yeah,
it's really kind of unpredictable. And I know there's a lot of fans are saying, well, they should keep going. Honestly, I think they're at the point where if they've really accomplished everything they can do with the show,
right?
Why not? I mean, the show is still doing great, but is there really anything else that they can, stretch their characters out and do further? I mean, you see that they're all married. I mean, Howard's married to Bernadette. Sheldon's now married to Amy.
Right.
And, Penny and Leonard are married. And like you said, Raj is the only one that's not.
Right.
So it's sort of like what's left for them to do.
I'll say the only thing I can think is the possible ending could be a flash forward where they're all a little bit older. They're all hanging out at somebody's house. They've moved out of the apartment complex. They've all got their own houses and they're all living off. They're getting together for like a barbecue or a cookout or something. Mm. And they're just chit chat and they go, oh, hey, where are the kids? And then it pans into the interior of the house in the living room that would look much like it does for them, and it's almost the same thing going on from when they were all friends and growing up.
Yeah, I mean, the ending, if that's the route they're going to go, that would make sense. I honestly just don't know how it's going to end. I think it would end very normal. I think it would end very similar to how the show began.
Yeah.
That it's going to be very simplistic. I don't think it's going to be anything too wild and crazy.
No.
Obviously they're just going to take the next step for their characters, whatever that's going to be. I could see one of them, moving away, and then that's the catalyst for a lot of different change for him. But there's just so much they can go, and especially for doing a 12-year run, and the guest stars they've had over the years too.
Like Carrie Fisher,
Will Wheaton became a regular almost.
Will Wheaton was a regular for a few seasons. James Earl Jones made an appearance. To me,
late Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, to me, the James Earl Jones appearance was the funniest thing in that show. Simply, and granted, I know I'm a Star Wars guy, but when he and Sheldon went up to Carrie Fisher's house and ding dong door ditched her house, mm-hmm. and she opens the door in like her nightgown and just screams, "It's not funny anymore, James." And James just from off screen goes, "Then why am I still laughing?"
Yeah,
it's one of those moments that it's classic.
Yeah, just the lineage of stars they've had on that show, and just goes to show you how they're almost like the catalyst for the geek culture taking over.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that show's not a hit, you don't see a lot of other shows take off.
Right.
And just to see that they've gotten over 10 years, let alone 12, is just truly remarkable, because there's very few shows, like we said, that are doing it. The only one that really comes to mind is Supernatural.
Right.
That has reinvented that wheel so many times.
Right.
And I think after they get to episode 300, maybe we'll see the end there. I hope not. I mean, the writing has always gotten consistently better.
Right. I
mean, for that show, I just can't see that happening.
Say the only one I can think of, and I know I've talked about the show a lot, is Smallville. Smallville, you can kind of look at it in, I would say, 3 different phases for the show, because the show went 10 seasons, 2001 to 2011. And you can kind of look at, the first third of the show as like the high school, he's still figuring stuff out. Mm-hmm. The second third is kind of like, okay, he's got stuff figured out, but he's not quite sure what he wants to do with it yet. And then the final third is, he gets to Metropolis, and he's kind of trying to establish himself.
Well, I mean, you take a look at a show like Smallville, I mean, that's always a prequel for whatever the hero is going to be. Mm-hmm. So you knew that no matter how the ratings were, if they wanted to end it, how it ultimately was going to end.
Oh, yeah.
So for a show like Supernatural, where they're still writing and they're still going in a lot of great directions, you don't know how it's going to end. Mm-hmm. The same thing with Big Bang Theory, because what started as just a very simplistic idea for friends in their daily life adventures has now evolved into, dare I say, like an iconic...
Let's say it's a modern, almost family sitcom.
Yeah, it's an iconic sitcom for the sense of where they started to where they are now. And going out on top is, the ratings are still good. I'll admit, I haven't watched as much this past couple seasons just because I watch other things now. But It's not to say that if the show's not on reruns, I don't watch.
Oh, yeah.
But just to see how far they've come from the start point to now, and them ending on a high note, I think is a good move. And
yes.
I mean, because they don't want to be the show that hangs on too long.
No, you don't. You want to go out on top while it's still popular, while it's still very much beloved. You don't want to drag it out, run it into the ground, and then, kind of make it what it shouldn't be.
No, because you want to remember the show in a good sense. You don't want to remember as, yeah, it's still on TV. Yeah, I've been watching in years. I don't even know why it's still there. You don't want to have that be your lasting legacy.
Right.
I think, and let me ask you this, Pat, what do you think is going to be the lasting legacy of Big Bang Theory?
I think, how you look back in TV history, and there are shows that stand out for decades, certain decades. You look at Cheers stood out, Roseanne stuck out, Will and Grace sticks out for kind of like the early mid-2000s. To me, Big Bang Theory is that standout for the early to mid-2000s.
I have to agree. Like I said, for its impact on pop culture and making geek culture cool to the mainstream, I guess, is truly a remarkable feat. Because at the time, like we said, you didn't see that kind of humor on TV.
Right.
You didn't really see people arguing about, PS4 versus Xbox, what's better, and make a whole show about it.
An entire episode, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't hear them talk about, Star Wars versus Star Trek on a mainstream sitcom.
Yeah.
You never would see it. You might see, like, if there was just somebody coming on like for a movie set and they'd argue, the character versus the real life person. Mm-hmm. You might see like some kind of scenario like that. They've always had that. But to see it kind of be, the normal conversation, and it is, because, I mean, if you listen to this podcast anytime, it's the normal conversation.
Sure.
If you talk to us outside the podcast, it's the normal conversation. So to see it on such a grand stage as it has been, as TV's number one rated sitcom for so long, and like I said, I can't remember the exact ratings now. I still believe it's the number one, but either way, its lasting impact is it opened a lot of people's eyes to, dare I say, geek culture. Mm-hmm. And look how far it's come since in 12 years, the culture itself. It's now... Comic-Cons are even bigger events than they were.
Oh, yeah.
How many times does a new movie resonate in the summertime if it's Marvel or DC?
Yep.
And you think that maybe that show opened some people's eyes that, instead of just being a cool movie, it's part of the MCU, or no, it's part of the world of DC, and then it goes off into a different conversation. It really opened a lot of people's eyes to what geek culture is all about. So to see it end on a good note, that's all I'm hoping for with the last episode. I'll be tuning in.
Oh, yeah.
Pat, you'll be watching?
Oh, absolutely.
But let us know if you're going to be watching. Hashtag ODPHEE. What's your thoughts on the Big Bang Theory coming to an end this coming TV season? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and HBO made some news yet again.
Surprisingly.
No, not really. I expect HBO, when they decide to drop a show, it's going to make some noise.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what, because of the quality of the network and the products they do. Last week, we were talking about Watchmen coming to HBO, which I'm still on the fence about.
Sure.
But one of my favorite shows is coming back.
And I don't think anybody saw this coming.
I didn't see it coming back because I loved True Detective Season 1.
Oh, yeah.
Without question, one of the best shows on television, period.
I believe that is the general consensus of those who have seen Season 1.
Yeah, Season 1, phenomenal. Season 2, not so much.
No.
Season 2 just went in a lot of different directions and really...
It had a few moments, but by and large, it really wasn't.
Few and far between.
Yes.
In my opinion. It was not good. So to see Season 3 is coming back, and who is going to be the star actor in it?
Mahershala Ali, Cottonmouth from Luke Cage.
On board. I
saw Mahershala, and I'm like, all right, well, you can stop the video there. I've seen all I need to see.
Now, the trailer was released on social media. Pat, what was your thoughts when you saw it?
First, I had to watch it once because I was just utterly blown away that they were bringing it back, simply because I know the reception Season 2 got was less than stellar. So, and I had heard nothing about them even doing anything to do with the show. I mean, HBO's been all Game of Thrones, in the spinoff. It's all you've heard out of them. So for them to come back with True Detective Season 3, I was a little surprised because, again, hadn't heard anything. But I'm interested to see where they go with this because it's Mahershala Ali, and it looks like from the trailer they're doing a bit of time jumping.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed too, that it looked like they're jumping around a couple decades.
Yep.
Or, a few years, because at one stage he looks like he's, very in his elder years.
Yeah.
And then you see him as a young man, investigating some crimes.
Sure, and it almost seems like it's a crime that, based off of you're seeing him young, you're seeing him kind of middle-aged, and then you're seeing him elder. It almost seems like this is a crime spanning decades that is like not going to be your standard crime.
Yeah, it was vague enough that it had a lot of questions, but it was straightforward enough that it looked interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely had my attention.
So it had to do that based off of people's reactions to Season 2.
Well, the problem is when you have such a show that had a first season that was as almost near perfect as Season 1 was, with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
And just how that show started to end. I mean, we talk about Breaking Bad being the benchmark show. I've always been a Sopranos guy.
Right.
I love Seasons 1, 2, and 3. And then, 3 was okay, but 1 and 2 is like perfect for me.
Sure.
But when you have a show that has that reputation, and HBO always does high quality shows no matter what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
The benchmark is set that high. Season 2 of True Detective was not, it wasn't as good.
I feel like they took a risk and they took a leap on what they decided to do, and it just didn't pan out at all. Like that, it's almost the scenario where you go to say something, and in your head it's really funny or it's really clever, quirky, and when it comes out of your mouth, you're like, "That was the dumbest thing I could have said. Why did I say that?" That's almost what it feels like to me. Is they, writers, and let's go out on a limb, let's try something different. Let's go a little wild with this, and it just didn't stick.
And, but I give him credit for trying to get out of the norm.
Sure.
And anytime that you really take a shot, changing a direction of a show, you're either going to hit it out of the park or you're going to strike out. But It's that chance you take. You shoot your shot. If it goes in, great. If you miss, you miss, and learn from it the next time. Albeit, though, TV audiences are very fickle. So if you miss, you're going to hear about it.
Well, especially in this day and age.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the one downside, I guess you could say, of social media is that just people want to rain on it. They're going to rain on it.
Mm-hmm.
But for True Detective, Season 1 was so perfect that when Season 2, stutter stepped, it really kind of gave a bad taste in the mouth when it was even kind of thought, okay, they were going to try doing a Season 3. Because of how the reception of Season 2 was.
I'll say, well, I'm digging in my memory. If memory serves, right after Season 2 finished, they announced that they were kind of reassessing if they were going to do Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading this going, well, of course, after how bad Season 2 was, you have to.
Well, I think it got away from the essence of the show, so to speak. I mean, there was so many moving parts in Season 2 that it just got kind of confusing. And then by the time that the finale rolled around, you're kind of like, All right.
It almost felt a little too long in terms of number of episodes, too.
Yeah, it was just, I mean, there's just too much going on and just too much. It wasn't as streamlined. I guess that was the thing that threw me off. That I was sitting there going, I liked season 1 because it was very straightforward. You knew the conflict, you knew the people involved, and there we went.
Right, and I mean, with a show when a show dealing with crime and drama and stuff like that, you have to take risks sometimes because crime shows, there are a lot of them these days. I mean, you look at the Law and Order over the years, you look at CSI stuff, you look at the Chicago series that's on NBC. There's a lot of crime shows. They've covered a lot of topics when it comes to various crimes. You have to take a risk. That's why Law and Order, you see, does stuff ripped from the headlines. It's something, it's a shot in the arm. It's something that, hey, this is organic. We can insert this and it doesn't feel forced. So taking a risk always isn't always a bad thing. It's just when it doesn't stick, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, that's the one thing we keep stressing is we're all for taking chances and trying to do something different on TV. Because if you find something that works and it's different and it's new and it's fresh, great. Because you want to see creativity on TV, in your TV shows and movies and comics and so forth. Because if you see the same old, it becomes repetitive. It becomes boring. You lose interest very quickly. So for season 3, it definitely was. It looks like a shot in the arm that was needed.
Oh yeah.
It definitely looks new. It looks different. I have no idea what the story is going to be based on.
No.
But I like everything I've seen, and they're doing time jumps, and when you kind of just get back to basics, so to speak, about just a real good crime story, and then let it roll, and you have great acting involved, and you know you're going to have it with this one.
Oh God, yeah. You got Mahershala Ali as your lead. I mean, go watch season 1 of Luke Cage with him as Cottonmouth. Enough said.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like the minute he signed on board, it was like, okay, when's premiere?
I'll say he's been in other things that he is equally as good, but for me, season 1 of Luke Cage is top of the list for him.
Yeah, and when you have an actor that has the credibility of Ali, the minute they sign on to a project, they're going to be.
There was a lot of. I was looking at some reactions online. There was a lot of people getting real excited just for him being the lead alone.
Yeah, because the caliber of his acting skills, and he's phenomenal. He is amazing. So the fact that he's going to work with the show, and it almost seems like, I don't want to say they're kind of go back to season 1, but like I said, it looked more streamlined. It looked more direct. Like, okay, this is a story. This could be the different phases. It just had that sense of, okay, we learned from season 2.
Right. We tried this. We tried branching out. It didn't work. Let's go back to what we know, and what we know works.
Yes. And I am super excited to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I was more excited about this than the other big news from HBO.
Yeah, the other big one kind of wasn't really surprised, but,
No, there was a very, very quick teaser trailer for Game of Thrones, the final season.
Yep, I believe if they're not done filming, they're close. I know certain actresses and actors are done filming. I want to say the whole thing is done filming, though.
Yes, and it's due back in 2019.
Sometime. That was the one thing. If memory serves, True Detective season 3 is in January 2019. Didn't give a specific date. But then Game of Thrones, it just said coming 2019.
I would bank that Game of Thrones will be on during the summer.
That'd be my guess.
I don't know anything. It's my unofficial ODPH guess.
That's my guess. It's summer. It's a good time for them to kind of drop that final season unopposed against anything. Whereas if you drop it in, say, the fall or the spring, you're kind of dealing with everything else on TV.
Right, and HBO's smart about it too. And I think if they drop it during the summer, I think they're going to get the ratings no matter what.
Oh God, it's the final season.
That's not even a brainer. But if they do it this summertime, there's not a lot on TV because most of the major networks are doing their summer hiatus and they're just showing reruns.
Summer programming.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to do it.
Oh God, yeah.
And I honestly have no idea what to expect for the final season.
Everyone's gonna die. I'm just guessing.
Oh, probably. It's Game of Thrones. I mean, there's only one other show that can compare about killing off regular characters without even question. Albeit, though, they haven't done it in a very long time, and that's Walking Dead.
That's true.
You can say Carl. I'll give
Carl. Yeah, Carl was shocking and unexpected.
Yeah, I'll argue that one. But everybody else, it's kind of like, wait and see. Whereas Game of Thrones, they're not afraid to do a first episode coming back.
Oh, what's that? You're really into this character and you really like him? I'm going to kill him now.
Yeah, basically. It's how the story plays out. And you almost don't want to root for anybody in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
because the minute you get attached to a character, they wind up getting killed off.
It almost feels like, you're afraid of cheering for somebody because, you feel like, oh, I don't want to give them bad luck. They're doing really well. And then you think about it. And then all of a sudden, oops. Well, they're dead.
Yeah, the minute that happens, it's like, all right, well, where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And, seeing that is always just kind of goes to show where the strength of the show is. Because no matter what characters get killed off, there's always somebody else that rises up and fills in the void of the character.
And so the writing is top-notch.
Oh, the writing's top-notch. I mean, the action sequences in there.
Holy moly.
Few can compare. Few. I'm even trying to think of a good one right now, and I can't do that.
No.
And obviously, I know that people are saying that, well, the final book isn't out yet. And
it's not. Well, the final 2 books aren't out yet.
Right. It doesn't matter. The show is going to end very strong. I can't see it. I can't really see it faltering. I don't even want to take a prediction about how the show is going to end.
Yeah, I genuinely have no idea. I've read the books as they've been released. Like Ken said, there are 2 more yet to be released, but, George R.R. Martin has said where the books will go is going to vary a little bit from where the show has gone. What that pertains to, I have no idea.
And I think that's smart too.
Yeah.
I think because the books are not already out, when they come out, you don't want to read a rehash of what you saw on TV.
Right.
So if they change the story a little bit, as long as it makes sense,
sure.
I don't.
But then you run into that in the show though, where and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are characters alive in the show that aren't alive at this point in the books. But you get that with anything on media,
right? Well, like I said, if you want to even compare it to Walking Dead, where they've steered off from the show, or from the books a little bit for the show. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Same thing with Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
But I think ultimately, with it being the final season, all bets are off, and a lot of people are going to get probably killed off.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you usually get your headline articles towards the end of the season, the last couple episodes. I'm going to guess that they're going to go, what to the wall every episode. There'll be, now it's not going to be like, Walking Dead all out war where it's action, but the action sequences and just those action packed moments are just going to be amped up to 11. And you're going to get headline articles that make ripples on the internet for every episode.
Oh yeah, I mean, without question, Game of Thrones is going to go out and they're going to want to make their legacy that this is the best show on TV. Period.
It's like every fan knows what's the the biggest episode of the season.
Oh, the second to last one.
They're going to make every episode like the second to last episode.
Yeah, it's how this show does. But kudos to them because there's nothing like it on TV.
No.
HBO is doing big things, folks. Let us know what you think of them. Hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and time to talk a little CW Arrowverse.
Oh boy.
Now, the casting of Batwoman is not the only big headline of this upcoming season. No.
No, you'd think it would be the big news of the upcoming season that, okay, well, we got that to look forward to, and then be kind of quiet until, you get closer and the trailers start to come out. But they decided to drop something on us.
They did. They have announced that they are bringing back Superman for the crossover, and they're going to be introducing Lois Lane.
And to be specific, they're not recasting Superman. They're bringing over Superman as played on Supergirl by Tyler Hoechlin.
And that's perfect, too, because he is a great addition to the Arrowverse.
I'll say he's got that, Boy Scout look about him, that bubbly, attitude about him that you expect with Superman. But at the same time, he's not afraid to mix it up a little bit.
No, and that's extremely needed, too, because one thing that the Arrowverse lacks to a degree is they don't have the big trinity. They don't have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They do have Martian Manhunter.
Right, yeah, they do.
But they don't really... I mean, he is...
he's there and he fights and he, does Martian Manhunter things, but it doesn't ever feel like a Justice League style Martian Manhunter.
Right. Which is okay because the Arrowverse is they don't really tie into the Justice League. I mean, you don't really refer to Arrow, Flash, Supergirl as the Justice League, even though you could.
Yeah.
But it's very, I think the CW kind of needs to do that a little bit.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's the next step it needs to take where you've established these characters, you've established these heroes. Well, what about arguably the biggest hero in that DC universe?
Yeah, and like we said, he plays a great Superman on this series when he's on. So to bring him back for the crossover, I think is great. They're introducing Batwoman, played by Ruby Rose. I love the casting for that too, by the way. So I'm very interested to see who they're going to cast as Lois Lane.
Yeah, that'll be real interesting.
Because they did introduce her sister Lucy on Supergirl, played by Jenna Dewan. And I believe that her father was also introduced as Sam Lane on the show. So they've kind of teetered around about digging more into the Superman universe. Mm-hmm. I think it's not a bad point to do at this stage. Because especially with the crossover, it's only going to be 3 episodes. I believe Legends of Tomorrow is not involved.
No, Legends is not involved.
And Black Lightning is its own universe.
Black Lightning is, with Supergirl's in its own universe, dimension, whatever you want to call it, but she can still cross over with Arrow and Flash. Black Lightning is like its own entity in a far distant universe.
Well, they have their own the multiverse there, and I know that I don't know what planet that's supposed to be,
right?
Because Earth 1, Earth 2, and then it's supposed to be the 52.
Sure.
It's just how DC's timeline works.
Yeah.
So I guess with this crossover, they're introducing Superman. We have not heard anything about Batman getting introduced.
Well, I think they're not going to do Batman because I think eventually they'll have to bring in Batman. If you're doing a Batwoman TV show, you're going to have to bring him in some capacity.
It would only make sense to. I mean, the fact they haven't done it yet, and I think the closest we're going to get to that right now is the DC Universe's Titans show,
right?
Which they haven't announced any casting for that.
No,
involving Batman. That is, they have introduced Robin, who I believe is supposed to be Dick Grayson in the show.
Yeah.
So I think the CW should add a Nightwing into this crossover. I don't think they're going to. I'm just very interested to see what they're going to do for this crossover. Yeah,
I'm kind of interested to see what story they go with, because you would think, okay, you're bringing in Superman, Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I know somebody brought it up that you kind of need to have Legends of Tomorrow there if they're going to do Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I agree. Yeah, you have to. To leave them out if they did Crisis, I think would be a very bad mistake.
Yeah.
But I'm just very curious about where they could go with it. Because, I mean, you look at Crisis on Earth X, was phenomenal. Probably,
oh, God, yeah.
Arguably the CW's best episodes of all their shows.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, there was just everything you wanted from a crossover episode in there. And let alone, I think, for the standouts of each show respectively last season.
I'll say that each episode ended, I was left reaching for the TV going, no, why did you have to end?
Yeah. So for them, obviously their crossover events have just grown and gotten better as time has gone on. And especially if you're introducing, Superman to the crossovers.
Sure.
You're going to introduce Lois Lane. Now, we don't know what the fallout's going to be.
Right.
I mean, is this going to be a one-off? Is this mean they could possibly be lingering around after? Hard to say.
Yeah, it really is. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Superman has a long and storied history. So does Lois Lane. So to bring her into the universe, it's going to add a whole new dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, they've been slowly adding more characters from the DCU in there, and I think it's a good idea because obviously when you see fresh faces in there, it's always good to mix it up with your established characters and see what the dynamic's going to be.
Let's say it's a fresh face with a fresh take on things going against the grizzled veterans.
Yes, because you're going to see Stephen Amell's Oliver Queen standing up against Superman.
Oh, that'll be something.
That'll be interesting to see.
I'm guaranteeing, I'm going to give you a stone cold guarantee here. There will be a shot either going into commercial or going into the credits as an episode ends where he is nose to nose with him, just giving him a stare. Like they don't agree on something. They're disagreeing on how they should deal with something. And it's just going to be them scowling at each other.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because obviously there is, very much so differences between how Green Arrow is in the comics to how he is on the TV show.
Right.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just there's differences. So to see how the dynamic is mixed up with Superman, who, I mean, is the most legendary hero of the DCU.
Yeah.
You can argue between Batman and Wonder Woman, but still, it's the Trinity there. So to introduce, a character of his stature onto the small screen and have him interact with the majority of the DC heroes, that's going to be something to see. And especially if they're digging in more so to the background characters of Lois Lane.
Right.
I don't know if this is going to be set on the same Earth as Supergirl, or is this going to be another Earth?
Right.
They haven't really touched upon that. There's still a lot of gray area that they're still, figuring out. I personally would like to see him do something like a 0 Hour or the Final Night.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw a couple different DC stories out there, but obviously without Legends involved, you can't really go full tilt.
Right.
So I really don't know what storyline they're going to go with. I think there's a lot of different ways they can.
I get the feeling they're setting up for something big full tilt, though, because you look at, they started with Arrow, then they added Flash, then they added Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl, and they're going to add Batwoman, and they're bringing in Superman, and they're bringing in Lois. I feel like they're setting up for something that's just going to be, what, to the wall full tilt.
Well, you almost have to wonder at this stage. I mean, we talked about the longevity of shows. This Big Bang Theory, going 12 years. Arrow is now on season 7.
Mm-hmm.
How much further are they going to go?
Right.
And I think that the challenge that Stephen Amell has thrown down to the writing staff that I've read about, I'm pretty sure there's some variation of this, but he's really challenged them to really write this season like it's going to be the last.
Right.
You want to see that. You want to have every episode be as dramatic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because with Arrow, they could keep going as long as the writing's still good. It just depends on what direction they want to go in. Same thing with Flash. That's up to now season 5. And albeit though I know I was talking about on different episodes too about what I'd like to see the direction of the show go there. I'd love to see an all rogues season.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, no more speedster villains. This is just the rogues versus Flash for the entire season.
Yeah.
See how that dynamic plays out. So that being said, I know they're introducing Batwoman. Is it possible that she might get her own spinoff show? I think that'd be a great idea.
Oh, God, yeah.
But the problem you have now is, okay,
where do you put it?
And, what do you take off? Or do you take off a show?
I don't think you take anything off. I think because they're going Sunday through Friday on their shows.
Mm-hmm. CW is adding a day of programming.
They're adding a Sunday through Friday. You got an added day in there where I think the bulk of their shows are Sunday through Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a couple extra days. You can throw something on there.
And just to see if they introduce any characters in this crossover and see if they stick out. Because I think Batwoman is going to be the big one that they introduce. I'm still surprised, though, they have not introduced more so the Green Lanterns. Even in mention. You've seen Hal Jordan name mentioned and Ferris Air.
Yeah.
But you haven't really seen anything, especially involving the Legion, as they've had on Supergirl. You haven't heard them talk about any lanterns on there.
Right.
They are having more time travel going on, so I would only say that'd be a matter of time.
Right, but I think at the same time, I don't think they've had to deal with anything as massive as needing the Green Lantern Corps. Sure, they had Crisis on Earth X, but that was a parallel universe that didn't really concern the Lantern Corps. I think if you deal with something like a Crisis on Infinite Earths or some other, giant level threat to the Earth, that's when you'd see a lantern thrown in there.
Yeah, but I think it's only a matter of time now because, as we said, the shows have definitely had a lot of great stories behind them. So to keep interest up, it's like you have to introduce the major players of the DCU at some point. The Lanterns seem to make more sense, I think, for me than I'd see Batman and Wonder Woman on the shows right now.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't mind seeing either of those characters get finally introduced. I mean, they've been mentioned enough.
Well, yeah, there have been enough teases that it's not just a fun thing in there for the fans.
Yeah, and I think that you should have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman on the shows at some capacity.
Right. You don't need to do it every week because then it just turns into Justice League Weekly, but you can have them on there for a couple episodes.
Yeah, and I think it can only help to. I think it can only help the shows grow and just further continue the quality they've been doing. 'Cause, I mean, we talk about how Big Bang has started. Look at where the Arrowverse has grown from just a simplistic, Arrow to now there's 5 DC universe shows on.
Yeah.
And just look at where they're going. They're still adding characters. It's going to be fun to watch, but let us know what you think of the idea of Superman and Lois Lane joining the Arrowverse. We want to know. Hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is the King of Lisle, Luke Visengard, Gladius 205 champion, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and let's hit off those one-shots. Pat, what you got?
Well, I got two things. First of all, gotta talk comics. Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 4, hit it out of the park. Caution, gonna go into some spoilers because I can't sit on this and just say go read it. It is earth-shattering, as you will. So we get into the issue. It's continued fallout from Peter getting affected by the machine that turned him into Spider-Man initially and split him literally down the middle. So you got Spider-Man running around saving the city, and you've got Peter, Peter as we know him, kind of sitting at home with Aunt May and, going out with his friends and really being at a loss because for so many years he's been Spider-Man. He's been saving the day. He's had a purpose, and now he doesn't know what to do. At one point, he helps an old man cross the street. He tries putting change in somebody's parking meter. He watches a YouTube video how to change a tire on somebody's car because their tire went flat. He's just at a loss. And all the meanwhile, Spider-Man's going around. He's courtside at the Knicks games. He's on, morning talk shows. He's got endorsements. He started Uber for superheroes, where basically they'll give you a ride.
Yeah.
And Peter just doesn't like what he's saying. So he goes and has a heart-to-heart with them, and he doesn't like what Spider-Man is saying, because when they were literally split down the middle, Spider-Man got the humor and the powers. Peter got the brains and the memories because
and the responsibility.
Because at one point, so they bring back the Tri-Sentinel.
Yeah,
which was a little interesting. And so that he takes control of the Tri-Sentinel, and he's going around New York using it to help him fight crime. And he goes at one point, when he's talking to Peter, he goes, haven't you seen my new Spider-Man? Here, let me bring him. He's parked next to the Statue of Liberty right now. And Peter goes, no, leave that thing here. You've leveled at least 6 city blocks with that thing alone. So they're having a heart-to-heart, and Peter just genuinely doesn't like what he's saying. It's there's no responsibility. There's no taking actions. He just doesn't care. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm leveling 6 city blocks. That's what the cleanup crew's for. And then he goes, well, what you're saying, remember the last time when we sounded like this? He goes, no, when? The night Uncle Ben died. And Spider-Man goes, sorry, who? And he goes, oh my God, he doesn't know what it is. So he goes back to college, and he goes back to Kurt Connors, and the 2 mice they originally used this device on and to experiment on have now died.
That's not good.
No, and so he goes, well, what happened? Kurt Connors goes into the explanation that the only thing he can figure is because of the prolonged separation between the 2 entities, they just eventually lost all spatial recognition, cognitive motor functions. Basically, they just lost the ability to live, and they just died, which is a little concerning for him, seeing as he's got the same thing going on right now.
Yeah. It's interesting to see the run they're doing. I'm still trying to figure a lot of it out. I mean, if you're bringing back the Tri-Sentinel, which, if memory serves me right, was during the whole Acts of Vengeance storyline, where Spider-Man had the Captain Universe powers. Yes, this is dating a while.
Right.
So, not really a well-known Spider-Man villain by any means. Sentinel usually goes with X-Men.
Right.
So, somebody's rehashing all of the old Spider-Man,
Well, it's Tri-Sentinels, plural.
Yeah.
Because while Spider-Man does take control of the one, the guy who controls it, or remind me what his name is? I'm blanking on it.
Gaunt, thank you.
Gaunt is kind of sitting there humming and hawing in his lair, as it will, when a voice, you don't see who, starts talking to him and goes, hey, don't fret, there's more where that came from. And it's like a rip opening in time and space, and 3 more of them come out.
See, I know he says Osborn at one point and it's never answered. I don't think it's Osborn. I have a weird feeling, in my unofficial ODPH opinion about this. This is Mephisto.
Ooh, okay.
Because if Peter Parker is back with Mary Jane,
yep,
that means omit and just Google it, because I don't even want to get into that whole.
It's a whole show.
It's a whole mess. That means omit might be getting wiped away. Which I'm okay with. I think
there's a lot of people who would agree with that.
I'm completely pro Peter and Mary Jane being married.
So am I.
I don't argue.
Well, they're not married in this. They're dating.
Right. But the fact that they were supposed to be separated, blah, 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 because of the whole deal to save Aunt May, I said, just Google save the time. I think Mephisto knows that deal is getting reversed. And this is his way of getting back at Peter, so this is going to be some way to retcon everything while maintaining Aunt May still is alive.
Would this put Mephisto at a higher power than like the highest powers in the Marvel Universe? That his deal and what he said had to happen is outreaching the universe, getting mashed together with the Ultimates universe, and then coming out of that.
No, but I think for as far as it goes with Spider-Man, I think the effect it's having on him in the world you see it in the books.
Okay.
That's where I think it's just more Spider-Man centric than anything.
Sure.
That this could all be in Peter's head that we know.
That could be.
So that's where I'm kind of going with this is that you might have this getting dealt with on the astral plane. I'm not doubting, and I have not read anything, a Doctor Strange appearance in this book to deal with that.
He hasn't shown up yet.
No, but I'm just making my unofficial guess because anytime you deal with, Mephisto, there's only a certain amount of Marvel heroes that really deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're going to see Ghost Rider, even though that'd be pretty rad.
Right.
You probably see Doctor Strange. You might see Thor, but it wouldn't really make a lot of sense.
Right.
But I would say even money is Doctor Strange. And like I said, it looks like they were teetering around omit.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, there's going to be ramifications.
Say the writing of this comic, we're 4 issues in, issue 5 is going to be coming soon, has just been incredible. You think about it, we're 4 issues in, and the only quote-unquote real villain we've seen is Dr. Kurt Connors, and he's not even really a villain anymore.
Right, you saw a tease as a one in episode 1 there,
right.
with Mysterio.
Right, you saw a tease with Mysterio, but like you haven't seen goblins, you haven't really seen, some of his rogues gallery. It hasn't even touched it yet.
Yeah, but if you think about it for how this antagonist is, dealing with Gaunt there and giving him his heart's desire for what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, this kind of reeks of Mephisto. That is my unofficial prediction.
Sure.
I haven't read anything, but the writing, like I said, Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley's been doing a heck of a job on this book, so definitely something to check out. Speaking of comics, there was some news by the DC way that it caught my attention, and I don't know exactly how I feel about this.
Okay.
I'm not mad about it, but I'm kind of going...
wait and see.
Yeah. Now, have you been reading Detective Comics since they've relaunched in the New 52? Batman has been slowly building like his own team.
Right.
And the minute I saw this, they never were officially called the Outsiders.
Right.
I was thinking, okay, they're reintroducing the Outsiders. Now, if you know the history of the Outsiders, they're a very eclectic group that was secretly... way back when the original run came out, I want to say it was mid-'80s, is Batman was done with the Justice League.
Right.
And wanted his own covert group and just said, these are my guys. This is who I'm working with now. I'm done dealing with...
Well, Batman never did strike me as much of the social type.
No, he's not a team player with those guys, but it was just, he was just basically saying, these guys are my new team now.
Right.
And he got rid of the Justice League and was doing his own team. And they've gone through various incarnations throughout the years.
Right.
It's kind of polarizing. They have a certain reaction on fans.
Sure.
Some people love them. Some people are like, oh, just let the team go away.
Sure.
This lineup, though, was very interesting because out of the Detective Comics, they're now going to be releasing a Batman and Outsiders book, which I'm okay with. I saw who's on the team, and I'm okay with it. Batman, The Signal, Orphan, who's Cassandra Cain, formerly Batgirl.
Sure.
Katana, who we all know from the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And Black Lightning.
Ooh.
Which Black Lightning and Katana, if I'm not mistaken, were part of the original Outsiders. So this has some nice tie-in. I haven't seen anything about Geoforce or Looker being the other names that stand out for the Outsiders. Because, like I said, the team was very eclectic.
Sure.
And it was definitely not your typical Justice League. I don't want to say they're like the Suicide Squad by any means.
Right.
But it was just one of those things that Batman just had his own sub-team on, which I'm not really... I'm not really surprised, and I'm just kind of interested to see what is bringing them back now to prominence. Albeit, though, if you've been reading Detective Comics, and Detective has been great since it came back in New 52.
Right.
Whoever's been writing on it, it's always been good. They're dealing with team issues and kind of building, their own Bat Squad, so to speak.
Yeah.
So to see it now become the Outsiders and see where they're going to go with it, I'm interested to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, as far as I've been able to tell, Batman's going to be on both teams, Justice League and the Outsiders.
Yeah, he can make it work.
Oh, absolutely.
He's got a couple $1 billion.
Yeah, which I'm just kind of interested to see what the stories are going to be involving the Outsiders. Because usually they've been your typical superhero team, but they're not your well-known names.
Right.
So see how it plays out. I'm interested to see. Like I said, I'm not really feeling a certain way about it either way. But after seeing what they do in Detective, if they bring that same quality over this book, okay, I'm on board. anytime you mention The Outsiders, I just kind of go, okay. They just kind of have that knee-jerk reaction about that team with me. So that's just something to think about. But definitely check the book out. I believe it's coming out in December, so DC is doing some things there. My other one-shot, though, there was some news involving the DC Universe streaming service.
Okay.
They were talking about the Doom Patrol series.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you don't know about Doom Patrol, if you really want to talk about eclectic, this is kind of like a mix of the X-Men element with just a lot more uniqueness.
Okay.
I guess I will say. And it was announced that Brendan Fraser, of the Mummy fame and Encino Man and other movies and such, has been cast as Robot Man / Cliff Steele. I am on board with this.
That's interesting.
I did not see him coming over to this, but I am completely there.
So when I think of actors I would like to see in a comic portrayal, be it TV or movies, I got to admit, Brendan Fraser doesn't immediately jump out first on my list.
No, but you know what? This works. And I think that obviously he's going to be doing more voiceovers.
I'll say that again, Bradley Cooper won't exactly either, but hey, he works.
Right, he works for that. But Fraser, I think, is going to add a certain element to Robot Man for Doom Patrol. Because Doom Patrol is just going to be different. Doom Patrol is going to be one of those unique shows that you're probably going to have a couple episodes that you're going to have to really watch to get into.
Right.
Because it's different. Not in a bad sense.
It's just different from what you've maybe used to seeing.
I don't want to say it's like Legion because I don't think that that's a right analogy. But it's going to be different in like the same kind of vibe. It's going to be something you haven't seen before.
It's not what you're used to.
Right. And I think Fraser's going to be doing a good job. I mean, like I said, you're going to see mostly voice acting from him unless they do flashbacks of before his brain was transferred into the Robot Man body. Like I said, Doom Patrol is different.
Sure.
So that's like a normal thing in there. So
yeah.
Just saying. And so to see that when that comes out, I mean, that's going to be interesting. I'm still on the fence about the DC Universe. Titans has still not won me over yet.
No.
But Doom Patrol kind of is making a little waves with me.
Okay.
Let alone with this casting, but some of the other names I've heard mentioned. And like I said, it's different.
Sure.
So like I said, I like diversity in my comics and my shows and my TVs and my movies. So this is going to be something very different from the norm. So I'm down for that.
And just one more thing for me, speaking of casting, y'all thought I wasn't going to mention this, did you? Ha! Joke's on you. There was a bit of Star Wars casting news that came out just a couple days ago that shocked me, left field. Holy cow. It was reported by the Hollywood Reporter that the former Doctor from Doctor Who, Matt Smith, is joining Star Wars Episode 9 in a key role, apparently. What that role is, I don't know. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I have no issue with this. I mean, I know they've announced him, and there was another casting they announced too.
Yeah, Dominic Moynihan, of course, from Lost and played Mary in Lord of the Rings, was cast as well, which I'm all for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars 9 has definitely added some names. I mean, Kerry Russell has been added too.
Yep.
So they're adding some new faces, which is going to be good.
It's also weird you're getting big name actors added to it because typically, you've had some actors with some moderate success, but never anything massive added to it. In the past, I mean, you look at when they cast Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford had a little bit of success, but he wasn't the big AAA, name that he became. It's weird to see a actor of Matt Smith's caliber and fame because he's a very famous name. He's he's well known around the world. He'll stand in the middle of Times Square and shut traffic down. The same can be said with Dominic Moynihan, although not as much as Matt Smith. It's I'm not against it. I'm not hating it. It's a little weird to see.
It's kind of odd, but I think this goes to show where the fandom is in modern actors.
Right.
They know this is Star Wars. They know this is the last Skywalker-led movie.
Right.
Unless they do like some prequels or something like
that.
But
Sure.
Episode 9 bears a lot of weight. This is going to be the movie of the year next year, arguably. I mean, between that and Avengers 4.
Right.
So pick your poison. But for Star Wars and the legacy, I'm sure somebody is sitting there saying they want to get in the movie, for various reasons. I mean, for some, they're looking as a payday, but I think this is more fandom than anything.
Right.
That the reputation that goes in being the last Star Wars movie, that is, like I say, and I mean the last Star Wars as the last Skywalker movie.
Sure.
Bears a lot of weight. If you're a real fan, you definitely want to get involved. Because you don't know what the franchise is going to be doing after this. We have our ideas, Boba Fett movie. But it could go a lot of different ways.
Let's say the only thing we know of that's going on after the movie for certain is the movie or movies Rian Johnson's working on, but literally nothing is known about those.
Right. So, I mean, who knows what that's going to be? But with episode 9, you know what the brand is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
Why not get involved? And that's going to bring a lot more eyes and attention that you would not necessarily think with Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
So to see the bigger names come to the movie, yeah, it makes sense.
We'll say, although admittedly David Tennant, of course, who also played the Doctor on Doctor Who, did have a role in Star Wars. He was on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which I believe he won an Emmy for, an award for. I can't remember it, but he played a droid that would go on trips when the younglings would go to get their crystals for their lightsabers, and then he would help them build their lightsabers. Because there's one point where he goes, "Oh, I've got every design for every lightsaber ever made by every Jedi and stored in my mechanical banks."
Right.
There's someplace, but so Matt Smith joining the ranks.
It's just another name to add to the legacy of Star Wars, because when episode 9 drops, that's all we're going to be talking about here.
Oh, that's all I'm going to be talking about.
Absolutely. But let us know what you think of the episode. Hashtag ODPHEE. That's all we have for this week. So for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.